fans, thank you so much for joining us today with Facebook Live with Dr. Lowe. We're going to go over some great tips for you on taking care of your pet, and specifically we're going to talk about going back to school, your pet's issues, what they're going through, as well as maybe what your children are going through and you. So I'm Tabitha Cromer. I'm the marketing manager of Tomlyn. I have 2 cats myself that I've rescued, and I love them dearly, and I have a little 6-year-old and a husband. We live here in Texas, so if you're ever here at Fort Worth, please stop by and we'll be glad to take you on a tour. Now I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Lowe as we cover some of our questions.
Hello again, guys. Good to be back again. My name is Jim Lowe. I am the Technical Services Veterinarian for Tomlyn USA, and ironically enough, my family and I just moved ourselves to Florida. So anybody out there in Florida that has questions, make sure you send us a line. We'll try to get to those. I have a 7-year-old daughter, my wife and I do, and we moved 4 cats, a bulldog, and aquariums full of fish to Florida over the last few weeks. And certainly there are some transitional issues there we were dealing with. We just got our daughter back into school, and we all know about how it is to adapt families and pets to new environments. So we're going to get started, as we already have quite a few questions, and we'll get to as many as we can.
Well, Dr. Lowe, tell us a little bit about your move. You said that you had to move with your dogs and your cats. So what did you notice just in moving? I mean, did you have to take some time beforehand to give them certain medication or?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we did with our cats is we got all the crates out that we were going to use to transport those cats, and we actually stacked them in the hallway of our home for about 2 weeks. We left the doors open, we put some of their favorite toys in there, and we actually used that as a R&R area for them. And the cats climbed and jumped and slept in them and just were in and out of them, got used to the smell, got used to the being confined in there, but they just really felt like it was home. So when the time came to actually move them, it was very easily to get them and crate them up and then transport them in the car. So always, as much as you can ahead of time, to adapt animals to these changes is important. Certainly there are supplements available. The Relax and Calm Chews that Tomlyn carries has chamomile, has L-tryptophan, agents that are going to relieve anxiety, perhaps mildly sedate, and those supplements during the transition phase and actually during the road trip as well will ease a lot of that anxiety. Certainly when you arrive at a new place, it's going to be very difficult, especially for cats. They're going to be a little freaked out from the ride. What we tried to do is confine these animals to a smaller room. Our cats kind of hung out there. You want to make sure they have a place where they can kind of relax, where they feel secure, and then allow them to explore and get a little braver as days go along. There was all kinds of activity, doors opening, doors closing, in and out. We wanted them to feel safe, yet we also didn't want to push them too quickly. And again, they adapted very, very well. Biggie, the bulldog, did just fine. He's pretty chilled out anyway, but certainly you can always consider supplementing an animal like that as well. But again, the more you can be preemptive in doing that. If you know your animal every time they sees a crate gets anxious, well then we want to get that crate out much, much earlier than the day it's time to leave. And for us, that worked very, very well.
Wonderful, thank you. Here's the first question that we have. My kids are back in school, and our dog seems depressed. Do you have any advice?
Certainly, and dogs are social creatures. They're part of the family, and certainly they can tell when there is a lot less activity in the house. So we all have to go to school. We all have to work. We have to do what we have to do. So a few things you might try certainly would be perhaps leave a TV on. Just hearing human voices, human interaction sometimes helps tremendously. You could also try a radio and tune it to a talk radio station, again, where there's lots of chatter and noise. It's going to kind of at least amuse the animal a little bit. Maybe try a new toy or a new bed. Certainly what you want to emphasize to the kids as well when they get home from school, that they really spend a significant amount of time pointed directly at the puppy dog. Maybe we take them for a walk, but certainly we want to reassure them of their importance in the family by reminding them when we get home, by taking special attention to them.
Do you recommend maybe giving them supplements if after a while it seems like they still are anxious?
Absolutely. Again, the Relax and Calm, I mean, all that is doing, chamomile, it just has an anti-anxiety component to it. The ginger is going to relieve nausea. Certainly L-tryptophan is a relaxing product. So all we're trying to do is take the edge off. So if that will help that transition into this new school year when they're feeling a little depressed, in addition to the other management things we talked about, absolutely a good idea.
Great. Okay, another question that we got is for my dog. The loneliness of back to school means he's chewing up cushions, and scratching up things. How can I keep this behavior from happening?
You know, there's a lot of controversy out there about whether animals really can hold grudges or whether they do things just to get attention. Certainly, I think in this case, one could argue whether or not scientifically it can be proven. Certainly, they're upset. They're reacting out of frustration, out of depression, out of being just a little upset. So again, as we talked about, perhaps a little something to take the edge off. The relax and calm chew that we have would certainly help. Again, it's interaction. So things we talked about, the television, maybe some radio, so some noise, a new toy. Again, making a concerted effort to promote as much activity with playing and things so that when that animal is with the family members, he feels assured of, again, of his position with the family. But again, it's going to take a lot of work. And again, if we can get ahead of certain things like this, that may be most effective. Don't be afraid to crate an animal. Some animals that are disrupting the household in this manner, they're going to be safe, they're going to be secure, they're certainly not going to do any more damage or potentially get into something that could harm them. Again, with perhaps the Relax and Calm supplement on board, and we can begin to implement some more activity and exercise to try to alleviate that. Usually with time and effort, it will get better.
So let me ask with crating, that's a good question because I've always had questions like what size crate is best for the animal. Do you want to give any specifics of like they need to be able to stand up or lay out?
Oh, I think it's certainly important that they're able to stand, that they can turn around, that if they lay down on their side, in the case of a dog or cat, that they're not pressed up against the side. So certainly I think it's always better in most instances to err on a crate that's just a little bit bigger. Again, a crate affords them protection, it provides them security, and again, when done properly with their favorite little blanket, a couple of toys, they can be very comfortable there, especially if it's one we use when we are going down the road. When they're transported in those as well, again, they become very comfortable in those and don't get nervous when it's time to get in the car for a road trip or something like that.
Okay, good. Another question we have is my husband and I are expecting our first child soon, and I'm nervous to introduce her to our cat. Do you have any tips to this introduction?
Can certainly be very serious. Again, the cats and dogs, especially in households where they are the kids, so to speak, it can be very serious sometimes because there's lots of disruption with the new baby. There's lots of loud noises. There's weird smells. Nobody's sleeping anymore. The hours are completely disrupted. And the risk is this animal is going to receive a lot less attention. So again, being as proactive as we can in alleviating these concerns, allowing that animal access to the nursery, to smell the smells, to kind of investigate. Consider getting tapes of babies crying and baby noises to play around the house so that your animal becomes more comfortable with that. A relaxing product like the Relax and Calm will help as well, again, just to ease that anxiety, because really it's going to be a lifestyle change. Again, the hours are going to be different, and we also want to assure, perhaps most importantly, that one, we never leave the cat and the new baby unsupervised, but also that the cat has its own security area, a place in the back with its crate, where it can hide, where it feels safe, where it's just had enough of all the activity and can go to be on its own. And it's not a total disaster if the cat appears to want to have nothing to do with the family unit. It will work its way out. The last thing we want to do is try to force that, but in time most cats will begin to appreciate there's no harm, there's no challenge there. But again, make sure they have access to somewhere where they can go escape and de-stress and feel comfortable.
Okay, good. Another question that we have, and if you're viewing right now, please feel free to, you can either make any remarks or send us any questions, and we'll be glad to get to them before we wrap up. Another question that we have is we recently moved and our dog has been having accidents inside the house. How can I help her become more comfortable with her new surroundings?
Yeah, lots of transition there. We can appreciate that. Again, we just moved 2 weeks ago as it is. And so, again, certainly with stress and anxiety, we can have some upset stomachs. We can have some diarrhea issues. So certainly a probiotic. We sell the pre and probiotic that you can place on the food. Will inoculate that gut, will maintain good health, will support that immune system and alleviate some of those concerns. Again, activity, interaction with the dog, perhaps new toys and new bedding will also help as well. Certainly sometimes too it's more of a territory thing, and they're starting to investigate and look around quite a bit and just try to mark things out. But again, it's trying to reassure them by keeping things as normal as possible, and again supporting their digestive health with the pre and probiotic as we smooth this transition along.
And maybe even in some incidences, even with cats and or dogs, if they're kind of marking, they may actually have a urinary.
Absolutely. You know, certainly sometimes it's always nice before you move to have your pets checked up to make sure they're healthy. If this persists, and certainly an evaluation, because many times inappropriate elimination can be indicative of an underlying problem. Absolutely. And remember, sometimes too, you know, if you have changed houses, make sure you haven't changed the litter. You haven't made other changes that may be disrupting things as well. Again, at least initially when you move, you want to try to keep as much common things as possible that they're used to, because things are changing and rapidly enough as it is already. So if we change their food and change their litter and buy them a new litter box, then we can really run into some issues quite quickly. But again, don't ever rule out the fact there might be an underlying issue.
Okay. All right, another question we have is, I'm a former stay-at-home mom who just went back to work, and my dog now barks all the time. Uh-oh. In fact, her neighbors can hear the dog. Can this be separation anxiety? And if so, how can I keep her calm during the hours when I'm gone?
Again, absolutely. The vocalizing is a way of that animal trying to cope with the anxiety of being gone, you know, and so certainly we're upset that social attachment they have with you has been disrupted, and they're dealing with it the best way they know how, by barking incessantly. So again, a relaxing supplement, the Relax and Calm, may certainly help alleviate some of that. Again, assurances as much as you can that you're there, that you can focus just a lot of time directly on them as soon as you get home from work. If there's a way to get home from work, maybe at lunch to visit with them, certainly helps. Again, potentially consider some confinement with toys and blankets, at least in the short term. Puppy daycare sometimes, you know, even if you could take them for half a day, just to give them some interaction, and they're out of the house and they begin to adapt to that lifestyle. There's all kinds of options out there. Certainly if supplements are not working, there are products that are a little bit stronger that you can visit with your veterinarian about, but certainly it's going to take time, reassurance from you. And again, all of these sometimes after the fact, unfortunately, but the earlier we can get ahead of this, the better, as far as maybe leaving our animals for extended periods of time when we know we're fixing to be gone for long periods of time. Anything we can do to ease that transition is going to be much easier than trying to solve it in the middle of the problem.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point, just making sure that you spend quality time before and after work.
Absolutely, because they want to feel like they're still important. And it's in the case of the new baby, things like that, many times the animals kind of get lost in the rush, and with that they can become depressed. They may start acting out inappropriately again because they just feel like they've lost a level of importance in the family unit. So the more you can reassure them of that, devote special time one-on-one with them, it'll be much more effective in alleviating some of this.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Another question we have is, I'd like to change my cat's food, but I'm nervous that she won't eat it or it's going to upset her stomach. Do you have any tips on the best way to make the switch?
Absolutely, it's a very valid concern. Again, animals, cats, dogs are not like us, where we can eat different things 3 times a day. Their microbial environment, the bugs in their stomach are acclimated to a certain diet. There's a certain pH in their gut. The bugs are happy digesting a certain diet. They get the same thing each meal. So when we begin to make a transition, we need to allow that gut environment to begin to transition slowly. So we make this change over, say, 7 to 14 days, meaning adding a small amount of the food, new food, to the old food, and gradually changing the ratio where we're giving more of the new and less of the old. Again, over about a 2-week period, allowing those organisms in the stomach to adapt, in the GI tract, I should say. Again, adding the pre and probiotic by Tomlyn will help as well. It adds prebiotic as well as new probiotics, healthy gut bugs to support the immune system, to support the digestive tract, and that will alleviate what can become a real mess if you try to make an abrupt change to an animal's diet.
Awesome. Yeah, because I know a lot of people question, like, if they adopt an animal, Sometimes they are wondering, what's the best type of food, but then they don't necessarily want to switch easy.
Right.
But I guess,
Right.
if they kind of take it slowly and
Absolutely.
start mixing the food.
Small amounts, gradually, with the support of the pre and probiotic, is going to be the most likely to alleviate the digestive upset that can occur if you change it really quickly.
I guess it's similar to us. If we're not
Sure.
used to fried foods and we go on a binge
Yes.
on fried foods.
Absolutely. Because again, we get used to a certain diet. Our digestive enzymes are about the same. We're just a little better. We're more able to adapt to differing meals, unlike an animal. You bet.
Let's see, another question we have is, I read that pets can develop allergies and flaky skin as autumn or the fall approaches. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely. Animals can become allergic just about anything that you and I as people are. And there are seasonal allergies in the fall and the spring, obviously. So many of these airborne allergens that we see in the fall can be seen in our animals with them licking their feet excessively. You'll see animals scratching at their ears because their ear canals tend to itch. Many of them will rub their muzzles and rub their faces on the ground. And those are manifestations of a sensitivity to something in the air. So they absolutely can. Many of these will also be seen as skin issues as well. So certainly there are some more homeopathic types. The natural pet products that Tomlyn sells is a more homeopathic way of managing some of these allergy concerns. Certainly if these symptoms worsen, then your veterinarian can recommend some stronger allergy type medicines. But animals absolutely develop many of the same allergies we do, and they can be seasonal.
Okay, that's good to know, because I kind of wondered the same thing with my cat and their itchy skin.
Sure.
So we just have a few more questions. So again, if you're watching this and you have questions for Dr. Lowe, feel free to ask us. And for some reason, if we cannot get to it during this live event, then we'll definitely be glad to private message you the answers. And the next question is that about bees, because bees are flying around even though it's not springtime, but I know here in Texas I'm seeing them everywhere. So one of the questions is it capable if a dog or cat, can they get stung by bees?
Absolutely. They'll get stung by wasps, bees, mosquitoes, exactly. And for the most part, luckily, besides being very painful and causing a little bit of swelling, they don't normally cause serious problems, but they can be. So certainly we want to try to keep them out of areas near hives, playing with the hives, things like that. And again, should an animal get stung, you need to contact your veterinarian, and they can perhaps give you some instruction on how to best manage it. But usually it's not, besides the initial hurt and sting and discomfort, long-term does not normally cause a lot of problems.
Do you know, is there a way to tell if an animal gets stung versus, because you know how some cats are outdoor cats and some dogs stay in the backyard to use the restroom and then they come back in. Is there a way to tell, is it like the human kind of swells?
It depends on the level of their sensitivity to it. If some animals are especially sensitive, you'll see them swollen around the muzzles and things. The muzzle and the nose area is a common place for them to be stung because they're nosing around with them. So you'll see a swollen lip, swollen area around the nose, them scratching at a specified area that's red and inflamed. Those might all be indications that they've been stung.
Do you think, is it okay to put something like baking soda on that area, like ice and baking soda, or is it just better just to take them straight to the veterinarian?
I think I would call the veterinarian first, because again, sometimes these areas are very painful, and if you try to put something on it, you may just be worsening it. But sometimes a quick call to the vet, many times they may be able to give you some instructions you can handle at home, but let them make that determination, and they may want to see the animal.
Good point. Okay, another question is, my dog and I love to go on hikes. Are there any poisonous plants that specifically grow around this time of year that I should be on the lookout for?
Well, regionally, absolutely. And again, that's a perfect conversation to have with your veterinarian. They can alert you to the plants in the area that are of concern. Certainly things as simple as poison ivy. We may have talked about in the past, animals do get poison ivy. So I think it's always good for a variety of reasons, not just their exposure to plants, but their exposure to holes, etc., to have them restricted to a leash within your eyesight, because again, the last thing we want them to do. There are certainly, though, poisonous plants out there. Every region is specific. So again, we want to make sure we can control the situation to the very best of our abilities to prevent them from being exposed to something potentially very dangerous.
Okay, good. And then another question we have is, I've noticed that my cat has been excessively scratching his ear and shaking his head. Do you think he could have ear mites?
Certainly, first and foremost, ear mites are probably the most common problem that we see in cats. But also remember that cats can also develop ear infections. We just talked about how allergies many times can cause the ear canals to itch, so an animal scratching or a cat scratching at their ears may simply be suffering from some allergies. Mites are passed from cat to cat, so if you have a single cat that's in a house that's never sees another cat, that hasn't been anywhere outside there, then mites are very, very unlikely, and we might be looking at something more a little bit different. So certainly an examination by your veterinarian. You can clean cats' ears periodically because they'll develop crusts and wax and debris that can bother them. But remember, an itchy-eared cat does not always have ear mites. It's just one of many things that potentially could be. And we actually sell a veterinary approved ear cleanser, and that might be something we need to do routinely because you will see some cats that begin to build up debris excessively more so than others. And again, your veterinarian can give you some pointers on that so you can maintain those ear canals as healthy as possible.
Okay, good. Well, great. Well, this is the questions that we have for this live session, unless there's anything else you'd like to add, maybe back to school or any other tips.
No, again, I think the whole idea about this transition thing is to try to make it as smooth as possible, which first and foremost is to try to get ahead of the situation, meaning if we're going to take a late summer trip or an early fall trip and we know these animals have anxieties around the crate or around travel, we want to get ahead of that by exposing them to the crates, by maybe taking little road trips. Certainly think about supplementation like the Relax and Calm to ease that, because again, the smoother we can enter into this stressful event, the smoother we're going to come out of it. Because we're in the height of stress, when we're in the height of anxiety and panic, it's very difficult to alleviate that situation and make matters any better.
Okay. And probably just to end it, to make sure they always have water and probably some food.
Absolutely, and then, jumping on traveling. Remember, for the most part, animals tend to do a little bit better, especially if they tend to be a little nauseous traveling, to be more on an empty stomach. So maybe a little water before you leave, but not feed them until you reach your destination. And again, one of the benefits of the Relax and Calm is the fact it does have ginger in there, which will relieve some of that anxiety and some of that nausea that they might have from the car travel itself.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you, Dr. Lowe, for your time. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to the next Facebook Live session.
All right, we thank you.